Hi, everybody. We're going to give you a chance to pop on, get started with today's webinar. And I just noticed a typo on your screen. It says 2020 Harmony Webinar Series. That would be incorrect. It's 2021. Happy 2021, everybody. All right. It looks like we're in a pretty good place here with participants jumping on. So I'm going to go ahead and get started so we can get to the good stuff. Welcome, everybody, to the 2021 Harmony Webinar Series. My name is Christy Weeks, and I am the Digital Media Manager for the Harmony Foundation. And I'm so glad you joined us today. We have a great presentation, Assertive Community Treatment, by Stacy Lucius and Kristen Walker with WestBridge. So just to give you a little background on Harmony, we're on a 43-acre campus in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, and we are a comprehensive treatment, addiction treatment center for adults, and we do support their family members. I'm not going to read this whole slide because most of you have heard my spiel before, but what Harmony believes in is long-term recovery is possible. And again, we're in the Rocky Mountain National Park. We have over 50 years of experience treating addiction, and we are a 70-bed residential treatment program. We do offer a new IOP, and we have a full detox program as well. If you are curious and want to know more about Harmony Foundation, go ahead and visit our website at harmonyfoundationinc.com, or feel free to call one of our admission staff at 866-686-7867. Couple of quick housekeeping. Let's see, is my screen not showing? Hold on, I've got a couple of comments here. I want to make sure that everybody is seeing what you need to see. Can anybody see a slide that says housekeeping? Okay, if that's no. Let me share my screen. That would help, Christy. Let's give that a shot. Yay, how about that? All right. We love technology when it works, and I remember how to work it. So that should solve everybody's issue right there. Let's see what they say here. Yep, there it is. All right. So onward we go on a quick couple of housekeeping. There will be an online evaluation that comes to you right after the webinar. Please fill that out. We certainly appreciate your feedback. You will receive your certificate by email by end of day on Friday. So that gives me a little time to get everything pulled together. If you don't receive it, please let me know, and you can reach me at the email on your screen now that everybody can see it. It is cweeks@harmonyfoundationinc.com. We do record these webinars, and it will be posted on our website under the Harmony EDU tab. And so if you have to jump off, or you miss a part of it, or you feel you want to go back and review it, you can certainly find it there. In order for us to give a certificate, you need to be engaged in the webinar for at least 45 minutes, and we do track that. So if by chance you do need to jump off, I can give you a certificate of attendance. As we roll on, I want to say thank you to WestBridge for their continued support. I'm so grateful they're here today to talk about such a great topic. If you would like to learn more about WestBridge, please go to their website at westbridge.org. Now on to the good part. We have a couple of great presenters. We have Stacy Lucius. She is the Chief of Clinical Services at WestBridge, overseeing the clinical operations of the organization. Working at WestBridge for almost 10 years, Stacy was previously in roles of Care Manager, Assertive Community Treatment Team Leader, and Director of Supervision and Education. Stacy holds dual licensure in New Hampshire as a licensed clinical mental health counselor and master licensed alcohol and drug counselor. She received her bachelor's degree in family studies with a minor in psychology from the University of New Hampshire and her master's degree in counseling psychology from Northeastern University. Stacy's been working in the behavioral health field since 2004. Prior to joining WestBridge, Stacy provided direct clinical care in a number of settings, including residential, hospital, school, and community-based outpatient treatment. Our second presenter, Kristen Walker, is the Director of Quality for Clinical Programs at WestBridge. She has worked in a variety of roles over the past 13 years with WestBridge, including the mentoring program, Assertive Community Treatment, Modified Therapeutic Community residential program, and in leadership roles within each program. Kristen began working in the field of mental health and substance use in 1998. She graduated with her Master's of Art degree with a focus in clinical mental health counseling from, I hope I say it right, Kristen, Riviera College in 2002. Kristen is dually licensed in the state of New Hampshire with both her LCMHC and MLADC. Kristen is very passionate about the work that she does and has a great appreciation and respect for the individuals and families that she has worked with at WestBridge. She is a member of the AMHCA and NADAC. And with that being said, I want to mention to everybody that we will be answering questions at the end of the presentation, but feel free to type them into our chat box at any given point, and we'll keep our eye on those. And I'm now going to turn it over to Stacy and Kristen.
Thank you, Christy. And I'm going to,
I'm going to stop my share.
Thanks. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that, or we'll start chatting that they can't. So my name is Stacy Lucius. Thank you for the wonderful intro, Christy, and thank you for having us.
This is Christina. I am very happy to be here. I'm glad that we could provide a little bit more education for those who are attending today. So thank you.
So hopefully this sounds familiar as to why you all decided to join us today in regards to assertive community treatment. So we hope to be able to define ACT as an evidence-based treatment with proven outcomes, identify the importance of working within one's natural environment, and recognize the role that relationships and authentic communication play in the treatment of co-occurring disorders. And so speaking of co-occurring disorders, that is the population that we work with. So you may hear us reference examples throughout the presentation in regards to working with men with co-occurring substance use and mental illness. That's not to say that the ACT model can't be beneficial for other populations as well, but that just is the population that we work with at WestBridge. And just to give you an idea of the scope, again, because we might reference something, and just to put it into context for you all, we do have residential care as well as our outpatient model, which is the ACT model of care. And although most of our participants do benefit from the full continuum of care, going through residential and then transitioning into ACT, we do take participants directly into ACT services as well. So just to keep in mind as we're going through the presentation and talking about things like stages of change and applying that to the populations that you may work with. So it is an evidence-based practice, as I said. It's extensively researched and evaluated, proven clinical and cost effectiveness. Unfortunately, the majority of insurance companies at this point haven't probably maybe recognized the cost effectiveness that having, solid longer term treatment ongoing through the continuum of care is ultimately more cost effective to be able to provide participants, as we refer to them, services, as opposed to being in and out of treatment and in and out of hospitals. But someday, hopefully, we will get there. So as far as the history of ACT as an evidence-based practice, where did it come from? Who started it? It was started by a group of mental health professionals in the Wisconsin area, and this is in the late 60s. So what did they recognize? They had recognized that they were having clients in the hospital setting. Their clients, they were discharged in stable condition. They spent a lot of time in the hospital teaching skills, but they recognized that once they returned into the community, symptoms would reemerge, acuity would occur again, and then they would see them back in the hospital. So what are some other relevant factors in terms of why people were being in and out of the hospital? The population of persistent mental illness in particular, but also co-occurring substance use disorders is a very vulnerable population, as many of you all know. And so anytime there's change, there's a lot of stress associated with change for all of us, but it makes it increasingly difficult for this population to adjust to the community and transition from the hospital into the community. And furthermore, services were fragmented. So people either had difficulty getting to the services and they needed support to get them there, and their services were in multiple different places. So maybe going to one place for one form of treatment and then going to another place for their medication treatment, and not being able to get to all of them. So what was the hypothesis? It was that the care provided following the hospital discharge is just as important as the 24/7 care provided in hospitals. So what did they do? They moved inpatient staff into the community to work with people in their natural settings, meaning their homes, their community, where it was that they were living. And the team members in this staff were of different areas and backgrounds. So they pooled their experience and knowledge and worked together to make sure that those clients that they were working with had the assistance that they needed. They met each day, and you'll hear similar to how it's done today as far as a morning meeting and starting the day with reviewing participants or clients. The team members would review to see how everyone was doing, see what services were needed, and quickly adjusting those services depending on the needs of the participants. So when people needed more support, team members met with them more frequently. The services are 24/7 availability. And so when people improved and were doing better and stabilized, supports adjusted, but they never really went away. They remained available. So that way, if there was a reoccurrence of symptoms of any nature or additional stressors being introduced, then the team could respond appropriately. And so what did they find in doing this research? They found that overall psychiatric hospitalizations reduced in number. There was an increase in housing stability and an improved consumer quality of life, which, as we all know, can be hard to define, but in this particular instance, defining as an improvement in symptoms or management of. So it may be that many of our participants and clients deal with symptoms every day, but they were more successful in managing those symptoms and also social functioning. Participants themselves and also family members reported a greater level of satisfaction. And also some additional studies have found that there are associations, particularly for the co-occurring population, that when in ACT, there's a lower level of substance use. And so since 1972, ACT has been widely implemented in the US, Canada, England, Sweden, Australia, and the Netherlands. You'll see various different names associated with ACT. For us, we refer to ACT as our model of care, but also care management as our team, which is made up of several different specialties, which we'll talk a little bit later. And oftentimes you will see, at least in this general area in the Northeast, that ACT teams are often associated with community mental health centers because Medicaid is the one insurance that does cover ACT services. And again, hopefully someday we'll have more expansive coverage for individuals that can receive these services.
So in terms of ACT principles of practice, I think it's just really important to identify that ACT is a service delivery model, not necessarily a case management program. The primary goal of ACT is really to work with individuals within their own environment in the community to where they can find the most success, whether it's living in an apartment, living on campus someplace, just working in their natural environments. So ACT is characterized by a few different things. First, there's a team approach. So there are, Stacy had mentioned previously, there are various disciplines on an ACT team, which we'll talk a little bit about in a few moments, but just working closely together on teams just to gather more knowledge, gain more skills, kind of sharpen skills, and share knowledge within the team with different members of the team. So there is cross training, and there's an awful lot of learning that we do from one another. If let's say I'm having difficulty or I need support with a participant, maybe who is having difficulty with a class that they're taking at school, I'm gonna be able to reach out to the vocational specialist that's on the ACT team and that person can work closely with the participants. So there's a variety of different services and expertise that we have on the team. Like I had said before, the majority of our services are provided in the natural environment. So the expectation that we actually have here for the ACT team is that 80% of the services that we do provide are in the community with the participant. And again, that could be meeting someone where they live. It could be working side by side with them. It could be going to the YMCA. It could be something like going to the grocery store. So really helping them build the skills in the environments in which they find maybe a little bit more stressful and kind of gaining skills there. So what we do with the traditional ACT staff to participant ratio, it's typically 1 to 10. So 1 care manager to 10 participants. We do have a smaller model, obviously, than you would find in a community mental health setting. So time unlimited services. So I think WestBridge is probably a little bit different in this area. As Stacy had mentioned previously, we do have a continuum of care. So we don't necessarily have a set time where one would, be in residential care and transition out. It's not, you don't have 28 days, you don't have 30 days. It's really tailored to the needs of the individual. So same thing as someone would be coming out of residential care, they could transition into the ACT program. And that again, really, and we'll talk, there's different levels of service, but that could look like anything to several months, a year, or many, many years. There's many guys that we've had that have decided to stay in Manchester and make Manchester their home because they just value the support that they have found in the community with help of ACT. So we do have, we do say here recovery is a marathon, not a sprint, because it's going to take some time and energy to develop the relationships that we know will work, to build trust with participants. That's not something that is a quick process. So again, there's continuous services based on the needs. There are levels of care. So what we have found works best when someone is transitioning out of the residential setting and coming into ACT, we have found that the higher level of care that we can provide participants has been most effective in keeping guys successful in the community, keeping them on their recovery journey, being more successful in gaining a little bit more independence and responsibility in the community, as well as reducing the amount of hospitalizations that they might have had if they weren't part of ACT or part of the continuum of care. So shared caseloads, that's a big one. Each care manager has a few participants that they coordinate care for. That doesn't mean that the point person is doing all of the work with the participant. It means that they're coordinating, making sure that their needs are being met and services are happening as they should be. So that point person might be the person of contact for the participant and family, but it's really a shared responsibility for everybody on the team and working with the guys. So flexible service delivery, again, really participant driven. Guys should be, we're working with guys around creating goals. Participants not being discharged for non-compliance. I really have trouble with that word sometimes, but we value the work that guys are willing to put into their personal recovery. Substance use and mental health, sometimes Sometimes it can get the best of guys. They may be struggling with symptoms. If they have something like a reoccurrence, we're not going to ask them to leave care. What we're going to do is come up with a plan with them to see how the team can differently support them, or in a different way, or how we can better support them. So, and the team really has the attitude of whatever this is going to take. I mean, I think that is essential when you're working as part of the ACT team. You really have to have a lot of initiative and kind of that can-do attitude. Fixed points of responsibility. Again, we're as an organization, we're really looking at treating the whole person. Part of, I mean, the reason why WestBridge exists is really because there was a family whose son who was suffering with substance use and mental health, really could not get integrated care. So you would be one place working on substance use things, and mental health would be an issue. So then he would work on the mental health piece, and the substance use would become an issue. So they really wanted to create WestBridge, and having a place where we're looking at the whole person and not just a part. So having all those different people on the team, we're really trying to eliminate any gaps in treatment. And available 24/7. We do have an on-call system as well. So each care manager typically has an on-call, is part of the on-call rotation. Back up to that person there's an admin as well as a medical on-call. So if anything, if somebody needs something at 2 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be somebody there to answer their question or talk or whatever they need. So, okay, so defining what assertive is. So I want to be really clear that when we say assertive, we're not being coercive to gentlemen. We're working with them. We really the team wants the best for them. The family is a very big piece of the treatment as well that we do with guys. Sometimes guys make choices that maybe the team in the moment may not understand or agree with, but we all have a reaction. We're all human, and this is being in human services. There's going to be a lot of emotional response that we might encounter. So really, each team member really being cognizant of their reaction and not taking things personally. Having a trusting relationship is critical in the work that we're doing with our ACT participants. There's always the participant and ACT team, there's always a level of mutual respect. Participants really want to be understood. They want to be driving, we want the participants to be driving their goals. So really whatever the team needs to do to help support that process. If there's an intervention or a strategy that maybe a participant does not want to engage in, just simply a conversation of, okay, well, that's fine. If we're not gonna do A, then maybe we can look to do B. And maybe let's talk about maybe why is it that option A isn't an option for gonna work in this moment. So we want to always be as proactive as we can be versus being reactive. Sometimes mental health and substance use really, I don't want to say they sneak up on guys, but sometimes that moment of making a decision where there's a slip or a reoccurrence, we always want to be being proactive with our guys. So what's the goal of ACT as a model of care? So our goal, and working within the ACT team is really to improve the quality of life for the participants that we're working with. Whether that be in social relationships, whether that be taking a class, going back to school, could be volunteering or an employment role. So we want to work with them in the community to develop and enhance their independent living skills. We want to help them gain skills in order for them to productively, successfully sustain living in a community environment, and want to reduce and eliminate the need for hospitalization. So we always want our participants to be as integrated as they can into the community and be seen as valued members of their communities. And when I mean community, I mean larger community, but I also mean something that a number of our participants are part of is the 12-step community. So there's sort of different levels when I say community. We want to help our participants develop sober skills, social skills, sorry. Want to continue to develop coping skills and how to apply them. We want to continue to empower our participants in looking at goals for life. How could they make the best decisions possible for them? Identify and work with the strengths that they have. And how can the team really help them build upon the strengths and master things to create more autonomy for themselves and gain more independence. We want to teach the participants really to manage their own health care and really how to advocate for themselves. Okay, so some of the services provided on an ACT team, as you can see, some of these are written in orange and some are written in green. So the orange are indicative of what you would find a traditional ACT model in an ACT model. In some, WestBridge does provide all of these services. Some are in green, the ones that we sort of have incorporated into our own model. Even some of the ones that are orange, we've sort of added and created a little bit more of context for and services in each part. So activities of daily living support, really that's pretty much the main what we're doing with participants in the community, that ADL piece and that outreach piece. One of the pieces that WestBridge has created here is the biosound therapy. So that is a clinical intervention that both we use here in ACT and at the residential program, where participants really gain the skills and tools to help with maybe decreasing anxiety or depression. We can talk maybe a little bit about that later as well. Some of the pieces that are really key in working with our ACT participants here is really psychiatry, the nursing, and the medication access. One of the strategies that we use for ACT when our participants are meeting with our psychiatrists to help with consistency and sort of that bigger, provide that bigger picture. We actually have a care manager sit in with the participant and the doctor. Our nursing services, could go on and on about them. Education and med access, we do an awful lot of general education around what meds guys are taking, why are they taking them, any potential side effects. So there's an awful lot we do with that as well. Nutrition education. We have care managers and nurses that do meal planning side by side with our guys. They do grocery shopping side by side. They do, meal prep, they do cooking. So there's a lot of side by side support that we're offering our guys in the community. We do offer smoking cessation. That's an individualized program as well. healthcare collaboration, and family support, again, indicative of traditional ACT models. Each piece of those, just in terms of our family support, we do offer, it's a very large piece of our WestBridge program, where we have a family and education and support model. We have family members who may be mentoring newer family members. We have a mom's group, we have a dad's group, all to offer support and meeting. I think they meet either monthly or weekly. We do an awful lot with travel support. I don't know that that's really with other programs. If there's maybe a holiday or a special occasion where a participant may want to go home to visit their family, and maybe that's a bit concerning to the team, or there's something of concern for family, we would offer to side-by-side support them to during their visit and to take that trip. I can't say a lot of places probably do that. We also have a mentoring program and a sleep coaching program. Again, I'd spoken a little bit about emergency services. We have the ability to have a respite program. So if there's someone in our ACT program that is maybe struggling or just having a very difficult time with something, we have the ability to have them do a respite stay at our residential program. So that might look like a night, a couple nights. It could look like a couple weeks, or just sort of depending on the acuity of the situation. It might look to be a readmission. We have lots of alumni services that we provide through our alumni program. Okay, so what is a typical ACT structure? So typically it's a Monday through Friday. We do have a set of care managers that work 8 to 4:30. We've newly developed sort of a second shift, the 2 to 10:30 for care management as well. On Saturday and Sunday, there is an on-call person. So there's typically 2 care managers here in the office. There's coverage for holidays, there's coverage for overnights. So the ACT participants always have someone to reach out to. Some of the roles on the team would include an ACT team leader, the psychiatrist, a psychiatric nurse, employment specialists, substance use specialists, mental health, any additional mental health professionals, a program assistant, and mentors who are typically working with our ACT participants in the evening. They're sort of an extension of our care management team. Okay, so daily operations. Our care management team does meet every morning from 8 to 9. They sort of review any follow-ups from the previous day, anything that maybe happened on the overnight on-call update. They do review participants, and they sort of start with participants who have shown the most acuity, and really come up with a plan for the day of how they're going to best support that participant and be proactive around plans rather than reactive. So again, we want to always remain flexible, mobile, and responsive. So as much as we do have things planned throughout the day, there's also space in the schedule for the care managers to really allow for time in case to respond to any crises or have any impromptu meetings with participants. And sometimes we have to ask participants to be flexible with their time, as they probably have asked us to be flexible with our time as well. So during the day, there's just a number of different services that we do provide to participants.
So really want to transition now to spending most of the rest of our time talking about the role of the relationship and how that, what that looks like in an ACT model of care and an ACT team in working with participants because it's very important. And I often kind of look at it as like one of the main ingredients of ACT services is really developing and recognizing the role that the relationship plays between participants and the providers being the multidisciplinary team. And so really the goal is to develop a supportive relationship between the participant, their family, and the team, and really looking at it as everyone's partners in treatment. So not that the team is driving the treatment. Kristen spoke to before about this is really about, you know, person-centered care and the participant identifying the goals that they want to work on, which may be very different than things that as providers we would like to see our participants working on, or family members wanting to see their loved ones working on. And so having that opportunity on a regular basis to have everybody come to the table and discuss all of these things is very important, and doing so through authentic communication. And a lot of these things, it's really a parallel process between how the team operates and functions, and Kristen will speak a little bit more specifically to the team functioning, whereas I'm kind of focusing on the role of the relationship between the team and the participant. But a lot of them are very, very similar in terms of the process and the values behind them. So very, very important, can't be underscored enough, non-judgmental approach, as I'm sure we all take, and holding one another accountable as a team to make sure that we're always coming at things from a non-judgmental approach, and that the team really understands stages of change. We offer tools, is how we look at it as an ACT team. We offer tools to our participants in hopes that they're going to use them. But we respect that they may not as well. So it's not about shaming or blaming or looking at it of, you know, why didn't you use these coping skills that we've been focused on? Sure, we might reasonably ask, you know, what might have gotten in the way of using them, but there's no penalty or shaming or blaming if somebody doesn't utilize a skill. It would be, quite honestly, probably an opportunity to revisit what the goal is, and again, was that our goal as the treatment team or the participant's goal, and where does the motivation lie? So the team carries and inspires hope for participants through resourcefulness and innovation and service provision. So really just that concept, and I mean, we hear this a lot in you know, self-help or mutual help, you know, until you can love or care about yourself or believe in yourself, we're going to hold that for you as a team. And creating expectations that our participants and those that are receiving ACT services can and do deserve to be part of meaningful activity, whatever that may look like to them. So some aspects that really overlap with the role of the relationship that are hallmark to the assertive community treatment model of care: recovery thinking. So belief that the person is not their illness. It's not who defines them, and that's not the only aspect of their life that we're looking at. Really looking at strengths. So assessing, as I'm sure many of you all do, strengths, needs, abilities, preferences of a person, leading with deficits. So not first looking at what someone can't do and where they need to be, but what are their current strengths, because those are the things we're really going to look at from a lens of resiliency and how to apply those to work towards goals that they identify. Always treating people with dignity and respect, using strength-based language, and never give up. So sort of that whatever it takes motto that Kristen had spoken to earlier. So keeping in mind that engagement, it's not always about a specific task. So yes, of course, all the services that anyone should provide, it does need to be tied in some way to a goal or an objective of treatment, but really remembering the importance of building rapport and what does that look like. So some of those outreaches that Kristen had talked about, it may just be in the community, stopping by and checking in with the participant because you know that they had a hard time the other day with something, or maybe something really awesome happened the other day and you want to be able to connect with them just to process or recognize an achievement with them. So it doesn't always have to be about specifically going grocery shopping or, and sometimes it is, but how can we also incorporate other conversation and rapport building engagement into those activities? In terms of engaging with participants, which again, I should say, you know, a lot of times because of the assertive part of assertive community treatment and us as a treatment team going to participants in the community, oftentimes it's because participants have not always been successful in receiving more traditional services where they're expected to show up, so to speak, at appointments or for groups. And certainly there are some of those expectations as well, but we go to them and we meet them where they're at truly. And so as a form of creative engagement, looking at, again, what are the participants' strengths and what can they teach us? What do they have for strengths that we can apply to a situation? So maybe somebody has a goal around exercise and weight management, and maybe they have a strength where once upon a time they were very actively involved or they grew up playing a lot of sports. So how can we sort of reignite that that passion, and maybe they can even teach us. I once had a participant teach me how to play tennis. I didn't do so well, but he enjoyed it, and it was a great engagement opportunity to create some consistency. And then for ourselves, creating opportunities as team members with those that we work with. So much of the work, and as Kristen said, the model is typically 80% of services are in one's natural environment, and that's where the work really happens. So what does it look like to do symptom management, for example, with somebody in their own environment, whether it's their place of employment, school, in their home? And the benefit, I think, of doing that is you're able to see those successes, and how reinforcing is it to be able to witness those achievements in the moment, because sometimes the participants don't even realize their own successes, and so to be there side by side and to point them out can really, really build on those strengths. And also, ACT teams tend to get creative and working together as a team, looking at their own strengths and how they can apply that to the work that they do. So what does this look like when it's actually put into practice? And you'll definitely see some of this aligning with just some motivational interviewing and strengths-based approach. But, a participant may say, I'm not a fan of AA, and maybe that was the plan of they were going to go to an AA meeting with a staff member, and that may even be part of their goals and their treatment plan. So rather than saying you committed to going to the meeting, you're going to the meeting, which sometimes serves its purpose, but really exploring from a place of curiosity. When someone says that I'm 80% checked out of treatment, tell me about the 20% of you that's invested. Let's focus on that and let's build upon that. So really, again, kind of that idea of remaining supportive, applying strengths to a challenge. Just some concepts in different ways that we can create kind of a safe and community environment. So creating space in the community or office, whatever that may look like, for different forms of fellowship, and having moments where we can recognize different milestones, whether it's a recovery milestone, and achievement within one's vocational objectives, doing different things to really point out and celebrate those successes, which all translates back to the role of the relationship. So a lot of this, and some of you may come from a background or currently work in residential treatment that's either a therapeutic community or modified therapeutic community, and a lot of these concepts are very similar. That idea of social learning from one another, getting engaged in the community, making relationships not only with us, but also with their peers, and how to use that as kind of a change agent with one another. Definitely the idea of outside the box thinking. That's where an ACT team spends a lot of time to come up with different interventions that may work to engage or help participants to meet their goals. And a word about noncompliance, and recognizing we're running short on time, so won't spend as much time as probably could on several of the next slides, but just to reiterate, an ACT program, Assertive Community Treatment, does not discharge participants for not complying. So that's not just about our organization, that's about truly an ACT model. It's not about you don't show up for services, or you have a reoccurrence of your substance use and you're discharged for treatment. It's absolutely about meeting a participant where they're at, and reevaluating, constantly reevaluating, looking at stages of change. If someone isn't quote unquote complying with what we expect, why is that? And how do we approach that? Again, from a place of curiosity. Maybe their goals have changed. Maybe they did have a goal that aligned with engaging in one particular activity, but maybe that's changed. And so looking at what's important right now and what's getting in the way, not that you're not going to revisit some of the previous things, but looking at right now, what's on the table, what's the goal, what's the focus, what's getting in the way. And then the team's responsibility is really to help develop stage-based interventions once we recognize truly what one's stage of change is. So oftentimes practicing harm reduction, looking at those outreaches and engaging with participants in the community. So again, just kind of summarizing with an ACT team adjusting services to meet the needs of the participants, not asking the participants to conform to our wants or needs for them. And that doesn't mean that we can't have encouraging conversations and support families in having those conversations as well, but it's really bringing it back to what does the participant want at this point in time in their treatment and their life.
Okay, so team concept and responsibility. I know we've talked a lot about this. The members of the ACT team really share in all of the care of all the ACT guys that we are working with. It's, again, there's the point people, but they're really just the coordinators of care. Really keeping alive the initiative and the can-do attitude is essential. There's lots of benefits of working with the whole team. Again, working with the different disciplines within the ACT team, knowing the team members, having the participants know who's on call is always very important as well. We actually we have an on-call schedule. We actually give all of our participants so they know who they can reach out to. Care managers having not full detail, but having an understanding of where each participant is at and kind of what's going on for them, what have they been successful with and challenged, just in case that person may call in for on-call to just for some support. And each participant's going to have a different type of relationship with different people on the care management team. Again, so different expertise that we would find in the ACT team include the psychiatrist, substance use, counseling, social work, mental health, wellness, nursing, vocational and educational support, and recovery coaching. And there's always what each of us brings from our personal experience. Again, we're not considered a group of specialists that are working with our individuals in ACT. It's very much an integrated, self-contained treatment model. We're always working collaboratively. There are several people that work within ACT that do have multiple responsibilities and wear different hats. I don't know if this is a tool that anybody has read. It's a book by Patrick Leonci, which I probably did not say his name right, but it's a book called 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, where it really team building looks at team dynamics. It really looks at what happens to a team and how a team looks in the absence of trust of one another. When each of us maybe there's a fear of conflict there. What happens when someone on the team really just demonstrates a lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and inattention to results. So what we've seen work best within our ACT team and really our organization is really being authentic with one another. So really just to be concrete, authenticity is the quality of being genuine or true, remaining true to oneself or personality, and being real or genuine. This may look like positive reinforcement and encouragement of your teammates, being able to provide feedback to a teammate, constructive criticism, point out, something that they did well or they're doing well, and areas of growth for each person. Holding one another accountable is also very important. When you're wrong, promptly admit it, which is something I think that comes directly actually from the 12-step community. A sense of mutual responsibility, not holding contempt prior to investigation. And what I mean by that is not necessarily assuming or jumping to a conclusion check it out and make sure you have the full picture before you hold someone in contempt. And the responsibility of the team is to create a space to maintain, to be able to be authentic and open with one another. Actions always speak louder than words, and we all want to be role modeling for one another. So expectations of team members, again, keeping the can-do attitude, making the members of the ACT team the most successful they can be. Really reaching out to other team members to help provide guidance, knowledge, expertise of any support that they might need, any help that they might need, asking others for support is it seems like a very vulnerable thing to do, but it's something that you need to grow comfortable with in order to successfully be really on any team, I think. Always feeling like you can pitch in where you can. We want to remain as innovative and creative as we can around problem solving.
So just to finish up and hopefully have a minute or two at least for questions, but looking at participant outcomes. So programs that adhere most closely to the ACT model are more likely to get the best outcomes. And so and on the resources page, there's a link there to SAMHSA where you can get the toolkit for implementing assertive community treatment. And within that, it actually provides you the fidelity scale in terms of staying close to the model, including things like the amount of the percentage of time spent in the community working with participants in their natural environment, offering integrated treatment, kind of all services under one roof, not discharging for non-compliance, all, many of those factors that we discussed about, and there's several more that we just simply wouldn't have time to go through all of them in here. But it's important to remember that oftentimes these services are over a span of time, not that they can't be shorter, but oftentimes, it's longer term, and sometimes we see outcomes very directly from an intervention, and then sometimes it feels like it's hard to see, the positive outcomes, and it's a little bit more indirect and more difficult to measure, such as that quality of life and satisfaction. So keeping in mind, again, long-term goals, objectives, outcomes, both short-term and long-term. And we at WestBridge do see oftentimes better outcomes when we have family involvement, a high level of family engagement, and again, indicative to the ACT model of care, there would be some level of family support involved. So these are just several different ways that we look to measure some of those immediate and long-term outcomes. And the last one there, evidence-based practice fidelity monitoring and reviews is one that's also, again, in the toolkit, and something that's advised to have as an ongoing process for fidelity review. So just some resources and references. Again, SAMHSA, very helpful. And here is our contact information and opportunity now to ask questions. So if we don't have time, because I know there's not much time left, and Christy, hopefully you can help navigate if anything popped up in the chat. And certainly Kristen and I are both available via email for additional questions or discussion that we may not get to.
Perfect. Hey, thank you so much. What a great presentation. I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes or just a minute or so here to type something in while I go over a few things. Although Nicole Shaw had asked earlier for you to go further into distinguishing the difference between a service delivery model and a case management program.
I think I heard you correctly, Christy. Sorry, it was in and out a little bit. I'm not sure if it's on my end, but the difference between service delivery and case management. So case management kind of model of care of kind of truly being that, being a point of contact that helps people get connected to services throughout their community. And certainly there's a part of that, but more the service delivery model speaking to that all in one roof piece. So having a therapist, let's say for some mental health support, people, whether it's peer support or professionals working on the substance use, having a psychiatrist or a medication prescriber in-house, supporting people side by side and accessing benefits. So having services all inclusive as opposed to somewhat disjointed in the community and just having one fixed person helping them get to it.
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you so much. She says that makes sense. So while we wrap this up, again, I want to thank WestBridge and Kristen and Stacy for their time today. It was a great presentation and I'm so grateful they were here. I want to let everybody know that, again, certificates will go out by end of day on Friday, and I will be including information on next month's webinar, which is on February 24th. It will be presented by Don Koyas. He's with White Bison, and the title is The WellBriety Movement, Cultural Approaches to Treatment and Healing of Native Clients. Keep your eyes peeled for that information. It's coming your way. And again, if you have any questions for Stacy or Kristen, please feel free to reach out to them at the emails listed on the screen, and their webinar will be posted to our website on Friday. Thank you so much, everybody. We really appreciate everything you attending and look forward to a great year of webinars with Harmony Foundation. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.